So for the first book I read last August 14, 2025, and ended or finished last August 23, 2025. I read The Woman Destroyed by Simone de Beauvoir. So in this about this book, I will talk about the part one, which is yung Age of Discretion, part two, which is the monologue, and part three, The Woman Destroyed. And this I will also discuss what I thought while reading this book and what I thought about while reading this book. So proceeding to part one, The Age of Discretion. While reading this part one, it has been dragging at first for me. I find it also a struggle to resonate with the narrator and the story. And I think it is also important to highlight the age gap because the narrator is an old woman who has retired already and feeling like slowly life and the aliveness of living is coming to a close. Like a very common, I think, occurrences when you are getting old. And it was shown into the dynamics of her relationship with her husband and her son. And also, there's this grief that comes with knowing that your passionate interests are failing to reach your own set of expectations and standards on what you think it is ought to be. Specifically, her or the narrator writing the book. And I think about maybe because I haven't really resonated at first, or like I feel like it was kind of like meh or what because of the gap of age and the narrator, the gap of age I and the narrator have. It is hard to resonate with an old woman's rage, even if we're both a woman. Even I thought some were petty and unnecessary, ganyan. But I guess part of living a life for a couple of decades and watching your life coming to an end is that you feel like it's not a smooth and cozy process going out your logical mind. Like it just made losing out of your mind somehow justified because, coming from an age, getting old and slowly, slowly drifting from the aliveness of living. Oh, aliveness of living. And as I reflect now, I think about how I stick to reading this chapter, even if sometimes I don't quite understand why the character does what she does, on why she rage and fixates so much on her son's career, on her son's life decisions, on how for every little things she can seem to find an agreement with her world and the people around her. And as I read thoroughly about this book, I allowed myself to know her background, the narrator's context, and how she thinks of the world, despite the assumption that and the word that this book might be of another stuck current read. I stick on and see through the chapter. But as she reconciliate with her husband and how her own assumptions of their misunderstanding the situation was all but a one-sided. And I thought you meant this kind of conversation, then would realize how in our lives there's so much more of we assumed out of the situations, influenced and clouded by our own emotions and conceived assumptions and strong conviction about the world that we unknowingly overcomplicate the levels of reality and truth within the realm of reality. I also think that so many relationships have been ruined all because of a misunderstanding and the notion that I thought you meant this and not that, thinking like the world and everyone is revolving around cynicism and that they're out to get you. And the sooner the husband shows hope for the world that seemed helpless, the relationship has gone to a new level despite the ugliness and the bitterness that comes with living and surviving and trying to thrive in an existential inducing world. We must hope. We must hope that a better world is possible. It's not out of this world idealism when we can start small with ourselves. Part two, which is the monologue, is about a woman who's been currently going through the roughs of her past, and present. It explores the idea of how a woman was born, and from then on, the family she grew up with would either make her whole, thereby making her affectionate, optimist, and warm, or they will destroy her. Or they would destroy her. It was all over the place. The storytelling, there's complexion in how she narrated her own story, depicting the mess, the grief, and the complexity of being a woman in a patriarchal society, being expected to be everything for your husband and your child, without acknowledgement and being seen that one has to suffer and is suffering. No one sees her, the narrator. No one acknowledges the pain of being a woman. Only her can understand what she's going through. She feels the narrator feels so lonely. She felt that if she died right there and then, she would have died alone, not to be found, just not important enough for her absence to be felt. Uh, In this quote, if I had to go to bed, there's no one of them that would move a finger to look after me. I could croak any minute with my poor overloaded heart. No one would know anything about it. That terrifies the guts out of me. They'll find a rotting corpse behind the door. I'll think I'll have that the rats will have eaten my nose. Die alone, live alone, no one I can bear it. And in this chapter, it shows how the character has a flawed character, but she's real. She's so lonely and in despair it affects her relationship with her daughter, and that she can protect her from all the evil in this world. And that's the dilemma of being a mother, of motherhood. And if she could, we knew that she would. Her daughter died of suicide, and for almost years, she knew other people pinpoint fingers on her, and how the mother will always be guilty because she didn't mother enough for her child to kill her own life. She went into psychiatric ward, and there she paid for the cost and the consequences of being a scarred woman, and how in this society a mother who lost her child was ought or was to be blamed. While part 3, The Woman Destroyed, is a diary-like format narrating how, when a woman became so dependent towards the married life, her husband and her children, that she forgot what it means to live on her own. She was robbed of agency, and there is nothing sudden about it, but it is slowly, excruciatingly torturing. I also like this format way of storytelling, some sort of a diary like where the narrator writes her everyday life, dealing with being a wife, being cheated on, and how she raised her daughters, her children. And somehow I hated her husband gaslight her out of staying in the relationship and justifying why he cheated on. Like, girl, the emotional trauma, the emotional abuse that comes with putting on something like that. And while reading this, I wasn't able to write my thoughts while reading this part, but all I know was that I can't stop reading this part. Like, all in all, this book, an existentialist feminist book, was a 5 stars for me. And I feel like kind of found my favorite book genre, which is existentialism.